Hello and welcome back to Finger Guns with Tony, Dave, and James. I am one of your amazing, dazzling co-hosts, Dave Baldwin, and I am here with
Big T, Tony B.
And we had the privilege, without Jimmy, unfortunately, to speak to Oscar-winning director Adam Elliot about Memoir of a Snail. And I don't know about you, Tony, but Memoir of a Snail, it got me right in the feels. I loved that movie.
Oh, the movie absolutely wrecked me. Like I was not prepared for that journey that we went on, but I am so glad, so glad that we did.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's going to be in limited release starting this week. I know it's definitely coming out at the Lightbox, but I think it's going to open gradually over the next few weeks. It's a claymation stop motion animated film about a young woman who is I guess they're basically torn apart, right? Her and her brother.
Yeah. Their father passes away.
Yeah, their parents are gone, so they become orphans and they get adopted at different ends of Australia. And it's just kind of like what their lives are as they grow up. And she likes snails, so that's where the whole snail thing comes in. And
there's a shit ton of snails.
Yeah. And it's just an extraordinary film. And we're so privileged to have been able to speak to Adam about the film. And just, he showed us one of the clay models of Grace, and just the sheer detail that went into this movie, making this movie, is astounding. And hearing him talk about it it's one of the highlights of my year for sure. At least film wise.
Definitely. It was definitely inspiring to talk to him. And I'm so glad that we had the opportunity. The movie is absolutely fantastic. The animation is second to none. Like I can't, I really don't know what I would put against it. I think this is probably one of the best, if not the best, animated movie of the year for sure.
Oh,
and that's definitely high praise, but
we still got a little bit of time left in the year, so we'll see how it shakes out. But until then, here's our conversation with Adam, and thanks for listening as usual. And we hope you enjoy listening to the conversation as much as we enjoyed recording it. Hi, Adam. Lovely to meet you. Congratulations on the film. I really loved it. It really, by the end of it, I was just weeping.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's a weird thing to wish for, but I love it when people say they cried.
How long have you been developing the film?
Well, boy, I think around 8 years. 2016 is when my father passed away and left behind a big hoard of stuff that my siblings and I had to trawl through. And that's where I became fascinated by hoarders, and that's where the script began. It took 3 years to write, 3 years to finance. And actually, the making it was the quick part. It only took 33 weeks to shoot, 6 months of post, 4 months of pre-production, which for an animated film, that's really quick. But yeah, I suppose 8 years from script to screen.
Amazing. And then...
No, go.
No, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Adam, where did your inspiration come from? Was there anything that was autobiographical in the film?
Oh, yeah, sure, Tony. I think there was a lot of stuff that is from my own life. My characters are all, I always say, autobiographical, but I never let the truth get in the way of a good story. I embellish stuff. I make stuff up. Grace is sort of based on a friend of mine who was born with a cleft palate, and she had a very traumatic childhood, was bullied and teased a lot, but then became a very well-adjusted adult. So there's aspects of her life there. My mother's in there a bit. I know two women who are the inspiration for Pinky. There's a lot of myself and Gilbert. So, yeah, they're sort of amalgamations. but certainly exaggerations and very embellished. But all my films are based on true stories and real people.
Awesome. The film felt very personal. It felt like very lived in. It was absolutely incredible. I really enjoyed it. I saw a rumor on Twitter that you used lube for the tears. Is that true? And if it is true, why lube?
Yes, it's very true. We went through gallons of the stuff. We bought out every pharmacy in Australia. I always joke Australia's a very dry continent at the moment. But it's great because it's a couple of properties it has. It doesn't evaporate quickly. And because we're working in slow motion, if we used water, the tear would actually evaporate slowly as we're animating it. So it's also non-toxic. It also holds its shape. We also use hair gel. We use glycerine. We use all sorts of goos and substances. But lube is certainly one of the main ones.
That is so interesting. I can't believe that. That's awesome.
I wanted to ask, just because I went back and watched your short films, and then I watched Mary and Max, which I loved as well. But Memoir of a Snail is it's easily your most colorful project. Was there a reason why you used so much more color with this film versus your previous films?
Sure. Well, originally I wanted this film to be black and white, but one of our investors said over their dead body, would it be black and white? So I said, all right, well, what about brown? Well, I want to make a brown film. And Mary Max, half of Mary Max was brown, but it was very desaturated. Whereas this time around, I wanted the color palette to be very rich and dense. But also warm, autumnal is the word I use a lot. I wanted it to be lots of oranges and rich browns, but also because the 70s in Australia, from my memory, were very brown. Everyone was painting their houses mission brown, and carpets were beige and cream. And also I wanted to match the psychological state of Grace. She lives a very bland existence, particularly in Canberra, which is very beige. And for Gilbert in Perth, he's, the brown there's very mission brown. And in Melbourne, I want more blacky brown. So each city has its own sort of version of the brownness. And also use red a lot to sort of emphasise certain objects that are more important and symbolic. So I always use colour and colour palettes as a filmic device. I find a lot of animations just colour and movement. And it's a real shame because you can use colour as a way of heightening a character's emotion and mood. I spend a lot of time developing and thinking about colour.
Awesome. How challenging was the film to create? How challenging was the film to create, and how did those challenges compare to your earlier films?
Well, this one, I think the biggest challenge was our budget. Films in Australia are getting harder and harder to finance, particularly if you want a theatrical season. Financing was more challenging than making it. But having said that, things like walking are very tricky. So for this is Grace here.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, hi, Grace.
And you'll notice she doesn't have legs. So one of the things we decided was to abandon walking and just do the Muppet technique. So they all walk that. And so that saved a lot of time and money. We use a lot of magnets. So, her arms come off. Her eyeballs are little tiny magnets that we can move around.
The detail on that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and all of her hair is all individually glued in.
Nice.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, just the building the puppets. She's probably worth about $10 in clay and materials, but she's worth probably over $10,000 in hours. And a whole team of people had to do a lot of R&D and take her head off. That's her neck armature. So they're very complex and sophisticated puppets. And when you have 200 of those, then it becomes very expensive.
That's amazing. Thank you for showing us that. That is really, really friggin' cool. What was your favorite scene to create?
Well, I think it's the opening shot because it's my Scorsese Goodfellas moment. It's the longest shot in the film. It's the longest shot of my career. It took 2 weeks to glue all those little props together, and it took 2 weeks to shoot. And we had a robotic arm with a very long snorkel lens that went through the horde frame at a time, and we had to time it perfectly. We did lots of tests. And really, the only animation in that shot's the toilet lid falling down at the beginning. So it was very ambitious, but it was necessary because I really wanted the audience to feel the claustrophobia of Grace's life right from the get-go, and also to say every prop, set, and character you're about to look at has obviously been handmade. There's no CGI at all. So, yeah, it was a tricky shot to pull off. The most expensive shot also.
Amazing.
You did great. You had me hooked right from the get-go. I knew I was in for a journey, and it was quite the journey.
Yeah. It was tricky to then end in Pinky's mouth and the camera come out of Pinky's mouth, getting that camera into this little plasticine mouth. It was a nightmare, but we got there.
It looked absolutely incredible. You did such a great job. I have one more question. How do you feel about the state of stop motion animation in 2024?
I think it's going through a wonderful golden era. Of course, we now have AI on the horizon and here to stay, and who knows where that's going to take us all. But I think there's a real appreciation of art forms in general that are handmade. And the fact that Guillermo del Toro and Wes Anderson and others making stop motion films makes my life a lot easier. And it's very important that we keep the fingerprints on the clay, again, to remind the audience this is real and tangible and tactile. So I think COVID has a little bit to do with that as well, that during COVID everyone started making bread and people took up knitting and handcrafts became very appreciated. And so I think that has a little bit to do with it. But ultimately, it comes down to a good story well told. And I mean, I choose animation purely because I choose stop motion purely because I don't want to sit in front of a computer screen all day. I just love using my hands. I love drawing. I love making things. So that's one of the main selfish, indulgent reasons. But I think stop motion also has a magical quality to it that it reminds us of our childhoods when we did play with Star Wars figurines and Barbies, and that we let our imaginations run wild. And I think there's that sort of magical quality that stop motion has over other types of animation.
Well, I definitely agree with you on that. The childhood wonder for sure, because that's what I felt when I was watching your film.
Yeah, it is. It's a real subconscious sort of, it's got a feel-good quality to it. I mean, but then I sort of trick audiences too. I think, this is going to be like Wallace and Gromit, and then suddenly someone has a horrific death. So I like to play with audiences as well and shock them.
Very nice.
What are we going to see another project from you soon? I don't want to say that there was a long gaps, but
there was, yeah. Yes, I mean I can't do anything else, so I've started writing the new one, which is going to be another feature. But because this one's being so well received, that's going to make my life a bit easier, and hopefully we can raise the money a bit more quickly. Because I've got a lot of animators depending on me back in Australia to get the next one up and running. But yeah, I want to make a road film this time. I think I'm sick of making films about characters stuck in their bedrooms in suburbia. I want to break free and do a road film, a plasticine version of Thelma and Louise or something, So yeah, just more of the same. I know Woody Allen's not in favour at the moment, but I love that Woody Allen methodology of finishing one film and going straight into the writing of the next, that sort of auteur cycle. Although I just got the news that Trump's back in power, I'm in Los Angeles at the moment, so I just want to get the hell out of here and get back to Australia before there's a civil war.
We definitely do not blame you on that one. And then the last thing I wanted to ask, just because I was thinking of it as we were talking, was, would you ever think to make a contemporary film set in the 2000s?
Yeah, look, I wonder. All my films are set in the past. I don't know. I worry that would date the film very quickly. I think the great thing about animation is it has a long shelf life, and all animated films tend to have a timelessness to them. I love the 70s. I was brought up in the 70s. I love the 70s cinema. I hated the 90s and the early 2000s. I had a horrible time myself. But, yeah, I think – I mean, already I know my next film, I'm pretty sure it's going to be set in the early 80s, late 70s. I'm very nostalgic, I think, and sentimental, particularly now that I'm 52 and getting older. I sort of have fonder memories of the past than I do of the present, that's for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. We both loved the film. Thank you for sharing it. And
thank you.
I really hope that everyone gets a chance to experience Memoir of a Snail.
Thank you. My pleasure. Yeah, I've been in Canada twice over the last couple of weeks, to Montreal and Vancouver, and I always feel very home there. It's very weirdly very similar to Australia in many ways. So yeah, thanks for interviewing me.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And
thank you so much for sharing the film, Adam. We really loved it.
My pleasure. I hope it goes well in Canada.
Fingers crossed. Good luck getting the hell out of LA.
Good luck to you.
I'll try. Thanks.